welcome to Gavin Ashenden once more. Gavin, breaking news, as they say. Sir Keir has done it again. And my goodness me, I've never seen a quicker reaction. The nation, what has he done in the last few days? He's caused even more hatred. So he decides to point out that we can't have the United Kingdom march. Well, he didn't actually say that, but he wanted that, if the truth were known, going ahead on Saturday because it interfered with the Islamic march, which of course is pro-Palestine, and these marches have been going on. And the interesting thing, Gavin, he never says anything about that march. It's all about Tommy Robinson.
Well, I suppose there are two areas to comment on, aren't there? There's the politics and the philosophy. So politically, he's fighting for his life. He's going to be replaced. He's in the last days of his premiership. We don't know how long it'll take because someone said that what the Labour Party is doing is like a Mexican standoff without a gun. So they're all there to shoot each other, but they've got no ammunition. So he may last a bit longer. But politically, he's quite clearly trying to distract attention from his own unpopularity, ineptitude, and lack of democratic representation. He doesn't represent the people or the country.
Yep.
He's clinging to power, authoritarian power. That's the political reality. The philosophy is that he's deeply committed to an anti-English, anti-British, anti-democratic, anti-social philosophy, which for some reason that we can't see, not being able to see into his mind, aligns with the supremacy of Islam and the diminution and betrayal of his own people. So there should be an outrage. People should be taking to the streets, not only for the Freedom March, but actually against an authoritarian government that's behaving like the classic Eastern Bloc tyranny.
Well, it's amazing, of course. One of the MEPs, a Polish person, has been banned together with 10 other people. One of them, Gomez in the US, because they're too far right. My goodness me, it's never been known before this. I mean, you can get in the country, going back to the Islam problem, with all sorts of weird views. What is going on? Is this spiritual warfare, Gavin?
Well, so it depends how far you trace it back. But I mean, yes, if I say everything is spiritual warfare, we know from our Christian revelation that this world is in the hand of the enemy. And to the extent that the church grows weaker, that our prayers go more feeble, that our witness becomes more anemic, so evil gets stronger. We think that we're in a period of time where evil has indeed grown, perhaps fueled by child sacrifice of abortion, by the blood sacrifices of the elderly. There are all kinds of reasons for thinking metaphysically that the struggle we're in with evil, we've allowed evil to grow in power and influence because of our betrayal of natural law. But at the same time, this is also a specifically anti-Christian move in our country, and it has to be called out as such. I think what I'm disappointed about is the fact that so few Christian leaders are speaking out. I saw this morning something, well, just something I could never have imagined I would see. It was David Starkey interviewing Tommy Robinson. And
Oh, my goodness.
indeed, my goodness. And there were two very bright, very strong, very clear. Culturally, you couldn't have two people who are more different, but absolutely united in their analysis, in their diagnosis and prognosis. It was both wonderful and terrible to behold, but it gives an example of how far we've come that it should even be possible.
Well, Tommy has become a Christian, allegedly. Now, you know a little bit about this. Other people have declared they become Christians and have gone back to their old ways.
Well, all of us are under pressure when we become Christians, and none of us ever know how we're going to run the race. He who endures to the end shall be saved. I know Protestants don't like that. They think it applies in very specific circumstances, but it's a very profound general rule, insight that our Lord has given us, never to presume too much upon ourselves. So far be it from me to look down on other people. I mean, honestly, we never know whether when the moment comes, if we were to be threatened with torture, imprisonment, or death, none of us know how we would answer. We only know how we would want to answer. So I'm not going to point the finger at people who've tried to become Christians and been frightened off. The fact is, Tommy Robinson is a worthy and splendid addition to the Christian community. Frankly, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The more they've sinned, the greater the redemption. And this applies to Tommy Robinson and also to that funny comedian man whose name I keep on forgetting, who people get upset about, who got baptized in the Thames recently. Um, what's right here? What's his name? It'll come back to me in a moment. Anyway, the fact is, sinners are allowed to become Christians. That's the deal. It's very exciting when they do.
Well, the other thing that's come out of Sir Keir's speech was accusing United Kingdom March as being totally unpatriotic. That's bizarre.
Well, he's just changing the meanings of words. He also accused it of being full of hatred. Actually, you couldn't find a more peaceful, humorous, joyful bunch of people. And we know that because they've demonstrated already. They've done it without violence, with joy, with colour. These are the English people that Chesterton wrote about, saying, don't write us off, we haven't spoken yet. Well, the English people are speaking now. And the fact that we're being governed by a prime minister who lies, who has no integrity, who has no grasp of reality, who's in the pay of anti-English influences that and who misuses language is just what we should expect from authoritarian deception.
Well, there's the election supposed to be coming in up, the by-election indeed in Makerfield. And I did notice on one news commentary this morning when the people were asked, wasn't a serious guide, who would you vote for? Out of the 25 people asked, 24 said reform. That's going to be a bit of a challenge for Labour, isn't it?
Well, I very much hope so. I've been thinking about this for a while. Um, I'm a great admirer of Rupert Lowe. I love what he's been saying and the way he's been saying it. I think he's a marvelous man. I have to say, my moment of anxiety or perhaps disillusion came when I heard him being interviewed by David Starkey, because David said effectively, look, Rupert, you clearly mean very well. You're a very good man, but you don't have any experience at all of government. You haven't got anyone lined up who's actually held a cabinet office. Do you realize what the civil service are like? Do you know what the blob is like? They make it hard enough for the most experienced of governments to govern. We just need to go back to Yes Minister under Margaret Thatcher to see some of the guile and the power sophistication that took place then. And that was in days when there was some democratic leverage, which there is none now. And the fact is, as dear Rupert Lowe didn't have an answer for David when he said to him, how are you going to find the skill, the wisdom, the experience to stop yourself being totally, well, effectively castrated in government? And Rupert didn't know. Now, my fear is that even if Rupert got in, he wouldn't be able to govern because he would be stopped by the blob. Nigel Farage is different. I'm not going to say anything about Nigel's character. You either like it or don't like it. I know what people have been saying about him, but he's got behind him two really wonderful people. They're Danny Kruger, whom I admire so much from evangelical roots, and also they have James Orr, a professor of philosophy of religion at Cambridge. James is a very clever man, and I think he's become director of reform and strategy. Now, they're both profoundly committed Christians, two of the most articulate and impressive Christians you could have in politics. In fact, as I look back over my lifetime, there have been no Christians on the right to speak of influence. I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg, yes, he's lovely, but he's never really had much leverage. And before that, nobody. I mean, Margaret Thatcher was a kind of lax Methodist. Then there were a few people who went to church and said their prayers, but they never came out as Christians. So effectively, we've gone the whole of my lifetime without people of this caliber anywhere in the Conservative Party. And now, frankly, I'm quite grown up. I recognize Halibut when I see it, and I recognize it in James Orr and Danny Kruger. Frankly, any party which had them at the center of their strategy would be a party I'd want to vote for. So I'm prepared to make allowances for Nigel Farage and his idiosyncrasy. He had a job to do, which he's done with remarkable courage, which was to have the whole of the establishment against him and to not give up in terms of making them accountable and providing a voice for the common person, the very people that Keir Starmer is trying to silence. Well, let's give Nigel Farage credit for doing that. I don't know how long he'd last as Prime Minister, but I do know he's got around him some of the most admirable people. They're the people I'd be voting for. I very much hope that people will see that the most pragmatic solution, the one that gives us the most Christian leverage, is going to be reform, whatever its limitations, and it has many.
What about Rupert joining with Nigel?
Well, I'd hope he would. I mean, it'll require a lot of Christianity. They treated him abysmally. They tried to get him locked up. I mean, no, does Rupert have the Christian depth? I'm not sure I would. I hope I would, but it's no. I'm laughing about it, but it's no small matter. I hope very much at the last minute that Rupert would. You see, I think what will happen. Here's the reality. Politics is the art of the possible. One of the things that the local, please forgive me if I'm lecturing people on politics. I'm not equipped to do it, but this nonetheless is where my thinking has taken me, and I've been surprised. And I'm like every man. The shock for me in the local elections was the veto that the Muslims produced. They showed they had enough people in significant places to veto anybody there, and anybody they chose to veto. And they chose mainly to veto Labour. Well, okay, that's not going to be well. That's not what's going to happen next time. Let's imagine that the things are close. They don't go as well as Nigel hoped, and the Muslims know perfectly well that he's the man to veto. They don't need to worry about Rupert because the vote on the right is split already. We've done the splitting. They need to stop Nigel. Well, if they voted like that, they could do. Now, one of the things Nigel's got to do is not to draw Muslim attention to have that veto put in place. So he mustn't mention repatriation. He mustn't mention that he's in his anti-Islamic party, because if he does so, he puts a target on his back and makes himself virtually unelectable. Well, the whole of my life, I've seen the Labour Party do that in their years out of power, when they were so dedicated to socialist purity that they made themselves effectively unelectable. It would really be stupid, politically stupid, for Nigel to do that. And so I think I can forgive him his ambiguity about Islam. I think it's precisely that ambiguity will get him elected. Now, if I'm wrong, well, there's no hope. I mean, there isn't any hope. There's no one better. Rupert can't beat reform. He might be able to join it, but he won't be able to beat it, sadly. If I'm right, and Nigel gets power, then what we have, then our role comes in. I've been arguing that, well, what we need is a reconquista. I don't mean taking to the streets, because I'm not sure we have the weapons or the ethics to do it. I mean the reconquista of Christian ideological nationalism, not the nationalism that the left have besmirched, but a genuine Christian concern and love for our communities. And at that point, the people have to rise up and put pressure on the government that is full of with Christians in it to implement what we ask for. Now, that might very well be remigration. Personally, I think it should be, but I think it's not the moment to talk about it. Sorry, my guard dog has got my wolf has got excited in the background. You go, Gav, she's shouting, I think.
Well, look, 4,000 police are going to sort this out. There's never been 4,000 police in the centre of London before. We've got armoured cars. I mean, it's fascinating. We've got drones all planned, and we've got CCTV and face recognition. Surprisingly, for the family event, not for the Marxist event.
Let's look on the bright side of life, shall we? That's how frightened they are of us.
Well, that's the power of positive thinking. Gavin, lastly, what should the church be doing and saying about this?
Well, we should always be talking about Jesus and getting on our knees to pray. But those are the two things we have to do. We have to make the case for Jesus because people haven't heard it. They haven't heard him. We've been lamentable institutionally. This applies to Catholics and Protestants alike. Obviously, with some glorious exceptions. We know who they are. But most of us haven't realized that the fight we're in, not only for our salvation, but for our civilization, we have to, it's all about Jesus. It's not about freedom or anything else. It's in the end, it's about the salvation of souls. Souls can't be saved unless they hear about Jesus. We have to tell people about Jesus. The problem we have at the moment is we live in a culture that wants to silence us and censor us. There are only we have certain freedoms, but the non-negotiable freedom is the freedom to preach, to talk, to live, and to advocate for Christian ethics. That's why we're on the streets. I hope we get a good government, but in the end, as far as I can see, if we have freedom of speech, then the Holy Spirit can do anything. It's when the freedom of speech is taken away that we have the most difficulty, and it's unnecessary, really. Constantine got us freedom of speech. It's been a Protestant heresy that this was the beginnings of making friends with the establishment. It was nothing of the kind. It was a wonderful gift for us to be able to go freely about our business to try and convert our neighbors to Jesus. That's what's being taken away, and that's what we need to pray for. So first of all, we need to talk about Jesus, and secondly, we need to get on our knees because the fight that we're in is not a fight that gets won with guns or with street violence. It gets won by weakening evil that we have allowed to flare up in our society.
And one mustn't forget throughout the Bible, particularly the Old Testament, there were many times when a nation disobeyed God flagrantly in some cases. Sometimes, oh, well, that's not too bad. Well, it was. And the one word that comes out of this, Gavin, and that is apposite to what's happening now, is the word chaos. My goodness, have we ever seen chaos like this?
Yes, well, order is a sign of godliness and holiness, and chaos is a sign of disorder. So I think that the chaos that you're referring to uh, takes the temperature of quite how evil and disordered we are. We're in a very bad state indeed, but we're not without hope yet. I mean, and thank God for Tommy Robinson and James Orr and Kruger and the many other heroes that are standing up and paying the price. I mean, we have Christian heroes still. The battle isn't over yet.
Gavin, thank you so much. I suppose the bottom line is that we've read the last page and we know the outcome. So
Yes,
cheer
yes.
up.
But God has given us the great privilege of fighting for him in the last days. He's entrusted us with a huge responsibility. So, this it's a great compliment from him.
Thank you. We'll see you shortly.
God bless. Thank you, Rodney.